In the first breath of morning light, something impossible happens. Species steps into view, and for a moment, the world forgets to breathe. Its feathers catch the sun like a flare, its call cutting through the silence with a sound that shouldn't still exist. And yet somehow it does. This is no ordinary bird. This is a survivor singing on borrowed time. Today we follow its voice across forests, coastlines, and forgotten habitats, tracing the echoes of a species holding on by a thread. You'll witness the behaviors that make it extraordinary, the quirks that science still can't fully explain, and the fragile miracles that allow it to persist when everything else says it shouldn't. But the stakes are real. Every note this bird sings might be one of its last, and somewhere in that sound is a story we're only just beginning to understand. So here's the question, the one we'll chase until the final frame. What happens to a world when the songs that shaped it start to disappear? Now watch as the camera rises. Sunlight halos around the silhouette of species perched against the sky. And ask yourself, how many more dawns will this voice be heard? You wouldn't expect a bird this loud and to be nearly gone. But the Bali myna is exactly that kind of contradiction. A ghost white bird that refuses to stay quiet. Its call cuts through the forests of Bali like a sharp whistle, bright and urgent, almost as if it's reminding the world, hey, I'm still here. And honestly, that might be the only reason we noticed in time. Found only on the island of Bali, this species lives in dry monsoon forests where sunlight hits the canopy in sharp, dusty beams. The myna moves in small, nervous flocks, hopping between branches with that bold crest always lifted, like it's perpetually surprised by everything. Their feathers are pure, glowing white, broken only by a ring of electric blue skin around the eyes. It's the kind of look that makes you wonder, how did a bird this obvious survive this long? They feed on fruit, insects, and small invertebrates, snatching food with an agility that almost feels too energetic for such a fragile species. During breeding season, pairs carve out nesting cavities in tree holes, exchanging soft whistles that sound surprisingly tender. They're loyal parents, both partners feeding the chicks, both fiercely guarding the nest. But guarding isn't easy when your main predators include snakes, monitor lizards, and humans who want you for cages. And here comes the twist. At one point, fewer than 50 Bali mynas existed in the wild. 50, a whole species hanging by a thread. Captive breeding programs saved them from disappearing completely, and now released individuals are slowly reclaiming pockets of forest. But even today, poaching pressure is so intense that some reintroduction sites require armed guards. Imagine needing full security just to let a bird sing. So here's the mini debate for you. Is it optimism or stubbornness that keeps this bird calling across the forest? And if you heard that whistle echo through the trees, would you treat it as a warning or a miracle? Because the next species on our journey isn't fighting for attention with color. It's fighting with a voice so skilled, poachers chase it for the sound alone. If there's one bird that could prank you without even showing its face, it's the greater green leafbird. This little neon green troublemaker can mimic other birds so perfectly that even seasoned bird watchers stop and go, wait, who said that? And that's the hook. You often hear it before you see it. And when you finally spot it, it's glowing like a green gem hidden in the canopy. Found across Southeast Asia's lowland forests, the leafbird blends into leaves so well it might as well have invented camouflage. Seriously, one flinch, one shadow, and it disappears. But its voice? Oh, it never hides. It whistles, chatters, trills, and copies whatever sound gives it an advantage. Rival males, rival species, sometimes even human-made tones. That mimicry talent is exactly why poachers target them. A bird that can sing everyone's parts becomes priceless in the illegal songbird trade. Their diet is a mix of fruit, nectar, and insects, and they move through the forest in restless hops, always alert, always tasting something. During breeding season, the male's green plumage flashes gold under sunlight, and he performs these energetic flutter displays that look like he's trying to pitch himself as Forest Bachelor of the Year. Females aren't easily impressed, though. They choose carefully, often selecting males with the most complex, clean, well-executed songs. Yes, even here, vocal skill is everything. Predators include snakes, civets, and raptors. But honestly, humans remain the biggest threat. In many regions, populations have crashed simply because their voices were too beautiful. Think about that. A bird hunted not for meat, not for feathers, but for talent. So here's your mini debate hook. If you could mimic anything in the forest, would you use it to survive or to show off? The leafbird chooses both, and that's why it's still hanging on, barely, yet in fragments of forest across its range. And speaking of birds with legendary sounds, our next species doesn't just call, it booms across miles of wilderness. The kakapo is the kind of bird that makes you pause and say, wait, is this even real? A parrot that doesn't fly, smells like a musty pine cabinet, and weighs more than a chicken, yet somehow delivers one of the most haunting mating calls on the planet. And not just a little call. No, the kakapo booms, a deep, chest-shaking whoom that rolls across valleys for miles, echoing through the New Zealand night like a bass speaker buried in moss. These moss-colored giants live in dense forests where everything seems designed to hide them, which is great because they're not exactly graceful. When threatened, their first defense is to freeze, entire body stiff, eyes wide, like a kid pretending not to get caught sneaking cookies. Evolution thought this was genius, until predators like stoats and cats showed up and said, "Thanks for standing still." Their diet is almost entirely plant-based. Shoots, leaves, fruit, and the occasional remu berry binge. Because they don't fly, kakapos waddle and climb using strong legs and surprisingly agile claws. They're nocturnal, social in odd ways, and during breeding season, males gather at classic lek sites, basically kakapo bachelor arenas, where each one digs a bowl-shaped crater, puffs up, and starts booming. The vibrations travel so far that females can triangulate the best male, like natural GPS but fueled by subwoofers. Here comes your twist. The kakapo doesn't breed every year. It waits for heavy fruiting seasons called mast years. No mast, no mating, which means entire generations hinge on the mood of the trees. Combine that with predators and small population size, and you get one of the rarest birds on Earth. So here's the debate hook. Is the kakapo a brilliant specialist evolved for a world without predators, or nature's most charming evolutionary accident? Either way, conservationists adore them, and every chick born feels like a global celebration. And if you think this story can't get more dramatic, wait until you meet a bird whose voice became famous in a Hollywood movie, right before it vanished from the wild. Long before the movie Rio made it famous, the Spix's macaw was already a legend. The blue ghost of Brazil. A bird so intensely sky blue it looks painted, yet so rare that for years not a single wild individual could be found. And here's the hook. This is one of the only birds on Earth where its voice, a sharp metallic chatter, became a symbol of hope after the species disappeared from its own homeland. Spix's macaws once lived in the gallery forests of Brazil's Caatinga region, a dry landscape of thorny trees and pale soil. They were specialists, relying heavily on just a few types of shrubs and trees for nesting cavities and food. Their diet included seeds, fruits, and the occasional crunchy insect. But their favorite snack came from the Araripe tree, a species that declined right along with them. Habitat shrinks, nest sites vanish, predators rise, and suddenly a bird built for a very specific world has nowhere left to stand. In the 1980s and 1990s, trapping for the illegal pet trade accelerated the crash. By 2000, the Spix's macaw was declared extinct in the wild. Just imagine, a blue feather drifting in the wind, representing the end of an entire lineage. Yet the species survived in captivity. And that's where the twist begins. A massive breeding effort slowly rebuilt the population, and in 2022, reintroduction finally began. For the first time in decades, the Caatinga heard that familiar call again. Not loud, not many, but enough to make everyone stop and listen. Spix's macaws form tight pair bonds, often monogamous, spending hours grooming each other and reinforcing their little blue-feathered romances. They're intelligent, playful, and surprisingly gentle for a parrot. Their biggest enemy now isn't predators, it's whether the forest can recover fast enough to welcome them home. So here's something to debate. Can a species return to a world that erased it? Or does its comeback rewrite the ending entirely? Hope says yes, but hope needs help. And speaking of birds tied to very specific landscapes, our next species survives only on a single island chain, clinging to its last fragment of habitat. For a bird that lives on the slopes of a volcano, the palila has a surprisingly calm attitude, almost like it knows something we don't. Bright yellow head, soft gray wings, and a thick finch beak built for cracking seeds that most birds wouldn't even look at. But here's the hook. This species survives almost entirely because of one tree. One, the mamani. Without it, the palila simply doesn't exist. High on the dry upper elevations of Mauna Kea in Hawaii, the palila feeds on maman seed pods that contain toxins deadly to other animals. But the palila, it shrugs them off like candy. That oversized beak cracks the pods open with ease, giving it access to a food source no competitors want. It's a brilliant adaptation until the habitat starts shrinking and suddenly that specialization becomes a trap. They move in small flocks, hopping between maman branches, calling with a soft, bell-like chirp that carries surprisingly far in the thin mountain air. During breeding season, the female builds a cup-shaped nest while the male brings food and performs fluttering displays that look a little like he's trying to sell himself as the responsible one. Predators include feral cats, mongooses, and even rats, and nesting success drops fast whenever these invaders show up. Here's the twist. The palila once roamed much of Hawaii Island, but today it's restricted to a narrow band of forest, its last stronghold. Every year that the Mamine forest contracts, the bird's world shrinks with it. Conservationists fight back with fencing, reforestation, and predator control. Yet the species remains one bad season away from disaster. So here's your debate hook. Is a specialist like the palila a marvel of evolution or a victim of its own perfection? When you depend on a single tree, does that make your world beautifully simple or dangerously fragile? Either way, the slopes of Mauna Kea still echo with its call, quiet but determined. And now we shift from a gentle seed cracker to a bird that eats monkeys, soars like a myth, and rules its jungle with golden eyes. You don't earn the nickname monkey-eating eagle by being subtle. The Philippine eagle is one of the largest, most powerful raptors on Earth. A bird so big its wings seem to cast their own weather. But here's the hook. Despite its size, it flies through dense rainforest with the quiet precision of a ghost. A creature this massive shouldn't move that silently, and yet it does. Found only on a few Philippine islands, this eagle rules the canopy. Its shaggy crest, piercing blue-gray eyes, and powerful talons make it look like a creature Tolkien forgot to include in his novels. But its behavior is even more impressive. It hunts monkeys, flying squirrels, monitor lizards, and giant bats, launching from high perches with bursts of explosive speed. One second the forest is still, the next something unfortunate becomes lunch. They mate for life, forming pairs that defend territories up to 40 square kilometers. Yes, kilometers. Raising a single chick can take nearly 2 years, which means most pairs don't breed annually. The nest, usually placed high on an emergent tree, becomes a family fortress where the chick learns to jump, flap, scream, and demand food like a feathery teenager. And then comes the twist. For all its dominance, the Philippine eagle is in trouble. Logging, mining, and habitat fragmentation carved away huge portions of its forest home. With such slow reproduction, losing just a few breeding adults can cripple an entire population. As if that weren't enough, accidental shootings and electrocution from power lines add modern dangers to an already shrinking world. So here's your debate hook. In a world where forests fall faster than eagles fly, is strength enough to survive? Or does intelligence, loyalty, and sheer persistence give this giant a fighting chance? Either way, when a Philippine eagle lifts off, The forest holds its breath. And now, as we move from one legendary giant to another, prepare for a bird whose comeback story is so dramatic, it borders on mythical. A creature that once dwindled to just 22 survivors. If you ever wanted proof that nature loves a dramatic comeback, look no further than the California condor. A bird so massive it can make a golden eagle look moderately sized. But here's the hook. In 1987, the wild population hit zero. Not near zero. Zero. Humans captured the last remaining survivors for a desperate breeding program, gambling the species' future on a last-chance rescue. And somehow, it worked. With a wingspan reaching nearly 10 feet, the condor doesn't fly so much as glide forever. Once it catches a thermal, it can stay airborne for hours without flapping. Watching one ascend is like watching a black and white sail catch invisible wind. Slow, steady, and undeniably majestic. They roam across rugged cliffs, deserts, and open canyons in western North America, riding the air like it owes them rent. Their diet? Carrion, dead stuff, and lots of it. They're nature's cleanup crew, stripping carcasses clean before disease spreads. Not glamorous, but absolutely essential. Condors don't hunt, they wait, they watch, they let time and gravity do the work. Breeding is slow and deliberate. A pair lays just one egg every other year, and both parents take turns incubating and protecting the chick. That chick will stay with them for over a year, a long childhood in bird terms, learning to soar, search, and survive. Predators aren't the problem. Lead poisoning from bullet fragments, habitat loss, and power line collisions are the real threats. And here comes the twist. After being extinct in the wild, captive-bred condors began returning to the sky in the 1990s. Today, hundreds now soar across California, Arizona, Utah, and Baja. Each one tagged, monitored, and celebrated like a feathery celebrity with a dramatic backstory. It's recovery science at its boldest. So here's your debate hook. When a species survives only because humans intervene, is that a triumph or a reminder of how close we came to losing it? Either way, seeing a condor glide overhead feels like witnessing a second chance in motion. And speaking of giants walking the edge of survival, our next bird towers above grasslands like a prehistoric shadow. If you ever wanted to meet a bird that looks like it misplaced its era, here it is, the great Indian bustard. Tall as a teenage human, heavy as a small dog, and somehow still capable of flight. Though honestly, every takeoff feels like it's negotiating with gravity. But here's the hook. This giant is one of the rarest birds on the planet, with fewer than 150 left. A bird this big shouldn't be this close to disappearing. And yet, here we are. The bustard roams India's dry grasslands, those open landscapes where tall golden grasses sway like ocean waves. It's a habitat perfectly suited for a bird that relies on seeing danger before it arrives. They walk with slow, deliberate steps, scanning for predators, foxes, feral dogs, even eagles, then peck at seeds, insects, berries, and the occasional small reptile. Their diet is basically whatever the ground offers today. During breeding season, males inflate a pale, balloon-like throat pouch and perform a display that looks equal parts impressive and ridiculous. They stomp, boom, and strut through the grass as if auditioning for a prehistoric dating show. Females watch from a distance, pretending not to be impressed. Classic nature theater. But here's the twist. The bustard's biggest threat isn't predators, it's power lines. This huge bird evolved for wide horizons, simply doesn't see wires stretched across its ancient habitat. Collisions kill many adults each year, and for a species that reproduces slowly, one egg at a time, often skipped years, every loss hits hard. And that leads to your mini debate hook. Should landscapes change to protect a species? Or must the species adapt to a modern world it never asked for? It's a tough question, especially when a bird as iconic as the bustard stands on the cliff's edge. Still, watching one stride through the grasslands feels like witnessing a survivor from another age. And now, from a giant built for dry earth, we move to a creature crowned in armor. a bird whose beak is so valuable it sparked an illegal trade of its own. If birds had royalty, the helmeted hornbill would walk in wearing the crown, the scepter, and probably the entire throne. This bird has a headpiece so large and solid that it's basically carrying a built-in battering ram on its face. But here's the hook. Unlike other hornbills, whose casques are light and hollow, the helmeted hornbill's is dense, ivory-like, and so prized on the black market that it nearly drove the species off the map. Living in the tall dipterocarp forests of Southeast Asia, this hornbill rules the canopy with wide, slow wing beats that sound like someone waving a rug through the air. You hear it before you see it, a deep woof, woof, woof overhead. And then comes its call, a bizarre series of hoots that escalates into a maniacal, echoing laugh. It's unsettling, funny, and unforgettable all at once. These birds are fruit specialists, especially figs, which they swallow whole. Their massive bills crack open tough fruits with ease. Males are territorial show-offs, often engaging in mid-air headbutting jousts, slamming their casques together so loudly you can hear the impact from a distance. Evolution could have gone subtle. Instead, it said, helmet, smash things. Breeding is another spectacle. The female seals herself into a tree cavity using mud and fruit pulp, leaving only a small slit for food deliveries. She stays locked inside for weeks while molting and raising the chick. The male works overtime, bringing fruits non-stop until she finally breaks out with her new youngster. And now the twist, that solid casque, once an evolutionary quirk, became a target. Poachers kill the hornbill for red ivory, carving it into trinkets. Combine that with habitat loss, and populations have collapsed across its range. So here's your debate hook. Is a species responsible for surviving its own evolutionary brilliance? Or is it doomed by the very trait that makes it extraordinary? Either way, that echoing laugh still haunts Southeast Asia's forests, a reminder of how quickly beauty can vanish. And from a bird with a helmet, we turn to a bird with no hair at all, but a personality that fills entire deserts. If there's one bird that proves looks aren't everything, it's the northern bald ibis, a creature so strange that your first reaction might be, is that supposed to look like that? Bare, wrinkled red skin on the head, a long curved bill, and a mohawk of glossy black feathers that sticks up like it's having a perpetual bad hair day. But here's the hook. This awkward-looking bird was once revered as sacred, even depicted in ancient Egyptian hieroglyphs. Today, it's one of the rarest birds on Earth. The northern bald ibis lives in rocky deserts and semi-arid cliffs from Morocco to Syria, or at least it used to, before its populations collapsed. These birds walk with a curious, deliberate strut, probing the soil for beetles, spiders, lizards, and anything crunchy. They feed in small groups, constantly muttering soft croaks to each other, like a squad of old men complaining about the weather. Their social life is surprisingly sophisticated. They nest colonially on cliff ledges, where pairs strengthen bonds with bill-clattering rituals that sound like someone tapping wooden spoons together. The feathers on their neck puff up, the mohawks flare, and suddenly this ugly bird looks kind of impressive. But predators and harsh weather aren't their biggest threat. People are. Habitat loss, disturbance, and hunting wiped out most historical colonies until only a few breeding sites remained. Then comes the twist. These birds migrate. You'd never expect it from their chunky build, but northern bald ibises fly long distances in V formations, riding thermals like pros. Modern reintroduction programs actually train young birds to migrate by following ultralight aircraft. Imagine that, a flock of prehistoric-looking birds soaring behind a tiny airplane like they're in aviation school. So here's your debate hook. Does rarity make a species more precious or more fragile? When a bird survives only because humans teach it how to fly home, is that restoration or reinvention? Either way, the ibis marches on, strange and unmistakable. And now we leave the desert shadows for a flash of electric blue. A parrot so vivid and endangered that every sighting feels like a jewel discovered in the wild. If you ever needed proof that nature sometimes uses neon colors just to show off, meet the blue-throated macaw. Turquoise throat, golden body, wings that blaze electric blue. This bird looks like someone cranked the saturation slider all the way up. But here's the hook. Fewer than 500 of these exist in the wild. A bird this dazzling shouldn't be this close to disappearing. And yet its entire world hangs on a few pockets of Bolivian savanna. The blue-throated macaw lives almost exclusively in the Llanos de Moxos, a seasonally flooded grassland dotted with palm islands. Those palms, especially the motaku palm, are everything. They provide food, shade, nest cavities, and a safe perch to watch for predators. The macaw's diet revolves around palm fruits, which they crack open with a beak so powerful it could probably snap a thumb if you weren't careful. They travel in pairs or small family groups, calling with a sharp, metallic screech that echoes far across the open plains. A sound equal parts cheerful and chaotic. During breeding season, pairs carve out their lives inside old palm cavities, raising 1 to 2 chicks. The parents groom each other constantly, strengthening their bond with gentle bill touches. Macaw romance is surprisingly tender for a bird that can crack nuts like a vice. But slow reproduction, habitat loss, and decades of trapping for the pet trade drained their numbers until only a tiny remnant population remained. And here comes the twist. These macaws look tropical, but they actually live in a harsh, unpredictable environment. Floods wipe out nests, droughts cut food supplies. Competition with other cavity nesters forces pairs to defend their chosen palm like it's beachfront property. Every successful chick feels like a minor miracle. So here's your debate hook. Is beauty a blessing or a curse? When a bird is so striking that humans can't resist taking it, does that admiration help conservation or endanger it further? Either way, the blue-throated macaw still flashes across Bolivia like a living jewel. And now we shift from brilliant colors to one of the most unusual beaks on the planet, a tiny sandpiper with a spoon for a face. If evolution ever had a sense of humor, the spoon-billed sandpiper is the punchline. A tiny bird with a perfectly flat, spoon-shaped bill that looks like it was borrowed from a dollhouse kitchen set. But here's the hook. This adorable oddity is one of the rarest migratory birds on Earth, with fewer than a few hundred remaining. A beak this cute shouldn't belong to a species this endangered. And yet here we are. These sandpipers breed in the remote tundra of northeastern Russia, nesting on grassy coastal plains where mosquitoes form clouds and the wind feels like it cuts straight through bone. In summer, their plumage blushes warm reddish tones, but outside breeding season, they shift to a softer gray, a tiny bird blending into a vast icy world. They feed by sweeping that spoon-tipped bill side to side through mudflats, scooping up small crustaceans and worms with a motion that looks half efficient, half comedic. Then comes migration, and the stakes get real. Spoon-billed sandpipers travel thousands of miles across East Asia, stopping at muddy wetlands in China, Korea, Japan, and Southeast Asia. Except those wetlands, disappearing fast. Land reclamation and industrial development wiped out much of their feeding grounds, turning a once reliable route into a dangerous gamble. Predators like foxes and gulls take their toll too, but habitat loss is the real villain here. Breeding isn't easy either. Pairs scrape simple nests in the tundra, raising 4 chicks that sprint across the moss almost immediately. But harsh storms can wipe out entire clutches, and with so few adults left, every chick matters. Conservationists now use captive breeding and head-starting programs just to give the species a fighting chance. So here's your mini debate hook. Is the spoon-billed sandpiper a masterpiece of quirky evolution, or a reminder of how fragile migratory species really are? Can a bird survive when its journey spans countries that don't always agree on how to protect the land? Either way, seeing one probing the mud with that tiny spoonbill feels like spotting a miracle. Small, determined, and heartbreakingly rare. And now we move from mudflats to mountain forests, where a pale, ghost-like bird calls the jungle home and refuses to live by anyone's rules. If a ghost ever decided to become a bird, it would look suspiciously like the kagu. Pale gray feathers, quiet footsteps, and a face that always seems slightly offended by your presence. But here's the hook. This ground-dwelling oddball from New Caledonia can produce a duet call so powerful and haunting that it echoes through the rainforest like an ancient spell. A bird this secretive shouldn't sound this dramatic, and yet it does. The kagu lives in the island's humid mountain forests, where its ash-colored plumage blends seamlessly with mist and moss. It can't fly, not really, but it can glide a tiny bit if pressured. Mostly it stalks through the understory with slow, deliberate steps, feeding on insects, worms, spiders, and snails. Its long legs make it look like it's wearing elegant gray trousers, which feels appropriate for a bird that behaves like a very judgmental ghost butler. The real show begins at dawn. Mated pairs perform a synchronized bark duet, a rising rhythmic call that fills the entire valley. It's part territory claim, part marriage counseling, part morning alarm clock. Pairs bond for life, raising a single chick per year, and both parents guard the nest fiercely. They're devoted, loyal, and surprisingly expressive, often lifting their crests when excited or annoyed, which honestly seems like most of the time. Now for the twist. The kagu evolved on an island with no mammalian predators until cats, dogs, pigs, and rats arrived with humans. Suddenly, this slow, flightless bird was in a world built for speed and teeth. Populations crashed fast, forcing New Caledonia to establish predator-free reserves where kagus could reclaim their forests. And here's your mini debate hook. Is the kagu a brilliant island specialist, or an evolutionary gamble that only works when the world stays perfectly still? Can a species built for peace survive in a world built for chaos? Yet even now, if you walk the forest trails at sunrise, that eerie duet rises again. Stubborn, beautiful, unmistakably kagu. And from one island rarity, we shift to another. A bird so brilliantly colored it looks like a flying ember in the rainforest. Some birds look rare, and then there's the Araripe manakin, a creature so strikingly red and white, it feels like someone turned a rainforest into a fashion runway. But here's the hook. This tiny bird exists in only one place on Earth, on a single slope in Brazil's Chapada do Araripe. One hillside, one habitat, one mistake away from disappearing. The male looks like he's permanently dressed for a high-stakes performance. Snowy white wings, blazing red crest, and a black tail that snaps behind him like punctuation. The female, in contrast, is dressed in olive green, subtle, quiet, the real power behind the scenes. They live in moist forest patches fed by natural springs, where streams trickle through the undergrowth and the light filters down in soft green columns. It's a peaceful world, or at least it was. Araripe manakins feed mostly on small fruits and insects, darting between branches with quick bursts of energy that make them look like colorful sparks popping in and out of view. During breeding season, males perform short, flashy displays, flicking their wings and hopping between perches like over-caffeinated acrobats. They're bold, loud, and determined. Everything a tiny bird shouldn't be in a shrinking habitat. And here's the twist. Their entire survival depends on those freshwater springs. Without constant moisture, the forest dries, fruit disappears, and nests fail. Expanding agriculture, water diversion, and development have already chipped away at their microhabitat, leaving the species squeezed into a narrow ecological corner. When you live on one mountainside, there's no backup plan. So here's your mini debate hook. Is the Araripe manakin a masterpiece of hyperlocal evolution, or a warning of what happens when a species bets everything on one perfect place? Can beauty endure when the world around it keeps changing? Still, when sunlight hits the crest of a male Araripe manakin, that red blaze ignites the forest like a tiny flame, refusing to go out. And now, from a bird tied to one mountainside, we head to a singer on the brink. A warbler whose voice once filled Pacific islands, but now echoes only in fragments. If a disappearing song had a shape, it would look a lot like the Nightingale reed warbler, a small, brown, unassuming bird whose voice once filled the wetlands of Guam and Saipan with a rich, rolling melody. And here's the hook. Today, that song is almost silent, A bird named after a nightingale, famous for its music, now survives mostly in memories and scattered conservation records. This warbler was never flashy. It lived hidden among dense reeds and tangles of wetland vegetation, slipping between stems with quick, furtive movements. Its plumage was a simple palette of warm browns and creams, perfect camouflage for a bird that preferred to be heard rather than seen. Its diet consisted of insects, spiders, and small invertebrates, which it plucked from leaves with efficient precision. At dusk and dawn, males would launch into long, fluid songs, broadcasting across marshes like nature's version of a late-night radio host. Breeding season brought even more activity. Pairs wove deep cup nests among reeds or low shrubs, lining them with fine fibers to protect the eggs from heat and rain. Both parents fed the chicks with relentless dedication, ferrying mouthfuls of insects until the young finally scrambled out of the nest, ready to vanish into the reeds themselves. And then came the twist. The brown tree snake. Accidentally introduced after World War II, it swept across Guam like a slow-motion disaster. Birds that had evolved without major predators had no defense. Entire island populations vanished almost overnight. Habitat loss and wetland drainage pushed the species even closer to the edge. Today, whether any pure populations survive remains uncertain, and efforts focus on locating remnant groups or establishing controlled breeding programs. So here's your mini debate hook. When a species disappears because of human mistakes, do we owe it a second chance? And if its song echoes again someday, will anyone still remember what it once meant? Either way, the nightingale reed warbler stands as a reminder. A small voice can define an entire landscape. And now that we've reached the final bird, there's one more story waiting. A story about what happens when all these lost songs come together. Somewhere between the first call of dawn and the last echo fading into night, we've traveled across islands, mountains, deserts, and rainforests to meet the voices the world is barely holding on to. Birds that shouldn't still be here, and yet somehow, defiantly, beautifully, are. The Bali myna, flashing white against a vanishing forest. The kakapo, booming into the dark like a heartbeat that refuses to quit. The condor soaring on second chances. And a tiny warbler whose song survives now only in fragments, carried more by memory than by air. Each of these species sings for a world that's changing faster than they can adapt. A world we shape with every field cleared, every wetland drained, every forest forgotten. But here's the thing most people miss. As long as even one voice remains, the song isn't over. Not yet. Maybe that's the real question this journey leaves us with. When a bird fights to be heard, long after its world has disappeared, what does that say about us? And what happens to our own story when theirs finally falls silent? For now, the lost songs still linger, soft, fragile, impossible, but they're calling, asking whether we'll listen while there's still time.